Namaste children. In the previous lecture, we discussed about the parts of the flower. And in this lecture, we will discuss that how does the sexual reproduction it occurs in a flowering plants. So first you should know about some basic terms like unisexual flowers, bisexual flowers, pollination and fertilization process. Now, what are unisexual flowers? Unisexual flowers means that which contain only one reproductive organ, one kind of a reproductive organ, either the male reproductive organ or female reproductive organ. And they are known as male and female flowers. Means either they contain the stamen or either they contain the carpel. Only one reproductive organ that is present. Only one reproductive organ it is present in a flower. And next, that are bisexual flowers. Bisexual flowers means that the flower it contains both the female flower also, the female organ also, and the male part also. Means stamen and carpel both that are present in one flower. So they are known as bisexual flowers. It means both reproductive organs that are present. Okay. Now if suppose we will talk about the examples. So in this case unisexual flowers, the examples that are papaya or watermelon, and in case of bisexual, so there are so many examples like hibiscus rosa, mustard plants, etc. Means any flower which contain both the reproductive organs, they will come under the bisexual category. Now next, that is pollination. Now what is pollination? Pollination means the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the flower. This is known as pollination process. And the anther, they contain pollen grains, as in the previous lecture we discussed that stamen it consists of anther and filament, and anther they contain the pollen grains. These lobed structures, these are known as anther and they contain the pollen grains. Okay, and what happens in case of the pollination? That these pollen grains they will transfer from the stamen, means from the anther of the stamen to the stigma of the carpel. This region that is known as stigma. This is style and this is ovary. So pollen grains they will transfer to the stigma region. Now pollination, it is also of two types. That is self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination and cross-pollination. Now what is the difference between the self-pollination and the cross-pollination process? Self-pollination means that the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. Okay, of the same flower or the flower that is present on the same plant. any different flower that is present on the same plant. Okay, means if suppose a plant is there and so many flowers that are present over it. Suppose this is one flower, this is second, third and so on. Okay, so if suppose the transfer of the pollen grains from the stamen to the carpel of the same flower or from one flower to the another flower of the same plant, this will come under the self-pollination process. And what happen in case of the cross-pollination? If suppose two plants are there of the similar kind, okay, these plants belong to the same species. So, from one flower of one plant to the another flower of the similar kind of the plant, if the pollination occurs in between these two flowers which are present on different plants, okay, so then this kind of pollination, that is known as the cross pollination. Now next term, that is fertilization. Now what is fertilization? Fertilization means that the fusion of the male and the female gamete. It is known as the fusion of male and female gamete. It is known as fertilization process. Okay. And where are the male gametes that are present? Male gametes that are present in the pollen grains of the anther region, and female gametes that are present in the ovules which are present in the ovary of carpel region. So when both of these gametes, male and female, they fuse together, then this process is known as fertilization. Now we will discuss sexual reproduction in flowering plants, that how the sexual reproduction process it occurs in the flowering plants and they are responsible for the formation of seeds. So children, as all of you know that in a flower two reproductive organs that are present, two kinds of reproductive organs that are present, one that is male and one that is female. So the male, it consists of stamen, anther and filament, and anther, it consists of pollen grains. And each pollen grain, it consists two male gametes. Okay, means one pollen grain, it consists of two male gametes. So when the pollen grains, they transfer to the stigma region, then this process is known as pollination. This process is known as pollination. These are pollen grains. And this is stigma, style, and this is ovary region. Ovary, it consists of ovules. It consists of ovules. Now it depends upon the plant that how many ovules that are present in a ovary. It can be one or it can be many. Okay, so ovary, it consists of ovules, and these ovules, they contain the female gamete. One female gamete that is present in each ovule. Like in your book, they have shown only one ovule, so that there should not be any confusion. So we will also take one ovule for the better explanation. So what happens that when pollen grains, they fall over the stigma region, then they form a pollen tube. Okay, pollen tube, it arises from the pollen grain, and this pollen grain, as it consists of how many male gametes? Two male gametes that are present. So these male gametes, through this pollen tube, they enter in the ovule region. Here in this diagram I have shown only one ovule so that to avoid any confusion. Okay. And this region, this space that is present in the ovule, this is known as micropyle. This is known as micropyle. Okay. So from this micropyle space region which is present in the ovule, the empty space, through this empty space the male gametes they will enter. These male gametes they will enter in the ovule region. In the ovule region. And this is ovule. And these are male gametes. Okay. So one male gamete, it fuses with the female gamete which is present in the ovule region. The male gamete, it fuses with the female gamete. And the another male gamete, this male gamete, it fuses with two polar nuclei which is present in the ovule region. Okay. Now what they will form? The first fusion, that is in between male gamete plus female gamete. This is known as zygote. This is known as zygote. So what is the product of the first fusion here? That is the zygote. Okay, that is first fusion. And what is the second fusion here? That is second male gamete plus two polar nuclei. And they will form primary endosperm nucleus. That is PEN. Primary endosperm nucleus. Okay. And what is the nature of this zygote and primary endosperm nucleus? Zygote, it is diploid in nature because two nuclei that are present, and primary endosperm nucleus, it is triploid. Okay, that you will study in detail in +1 class, in +1 and +2 class. Now, here two products are there, one that is zygote and one that is primary endosperm nucleus. Okay, so these are the products of the fertilization process. And this fertilization, that is also known as double fertilization. Why this fertilization that is known as double fertilization? Because two fusions that will occur, two fertilizations that are there. One that is in between male gamete and female gamete, and second fertilization that is in between male gamete and +2 polar nuclei. Okay, so that's why this fusion that is also known as, these fusions that are known as double fertilization. Now, sometime the question it will come in this manner, that what are the pre-fertilization events and what are the post-fertilization events. Okay, so in what manner you have to attempt the question. If suppose this question that will come, that pre-fertilization events you have to explain. So what you will write in that? In that you have to write this pollination and how the pollen tube it forms, and then male gamete it enters in the ovule region, and then the fusion process. Okay. But if suppose the post fertilization process it will come, then what is the answer of that? Post fertilization events means that what does actually form after the fertilization. Post fertilization events. That after fertilization, when the fertilization it will occur, then what is the fate of the zygote, PEN, primary endosperm nucleus, ovule and ovary. Okay. So what happened? The zygote it develops to form embryo. It develops to form embryo. Second, that is PEN, that is also known as triploid nucleus because 3 nucleus that are present. Primary endosperm nucleus, it develops into the endosperm. It develops into endosperm. And third, that is ovule. Ovule, it develops into seed. Okay. This ovule, it will become seed after the fertilization process. And ovary, it forms fruits. Okay, so in this manner, the fruits that are formed which contain the seed. Okay, and from the seeds, you can grow or germinate a new plant also. So let's see again that first of all the pollen grains they transfer to the stigma region. These pollen grains they contain the male gamete. Okay. So when they fall over the stigma region, then the pollen tube it will grow in the downward region and it enters in the ovule region through the micropyle, that is the space present here. As one pollen grain it consists of 2 male gametes. So one male gamete it fuses with the female gamete to form the zygote, and the second male gamete it fuses with the 2 polar nuclei to form the PEN, that is primary endosperm nucleus. Okay, and what are the post fertilization events? That zygote it develops to form the embryo, PEN it forms the endosperm, and ovule it forms the seed, and ovary it forms the fruits. And fruits they are also of 2 kinds. Okay, like some fruits that are very pulpy and some fruits that are dry. So the dry fruits, that's why they are known as the dry fruits, and some they are having the pulp over it, so they are the pulpy